Welcome to English Unlocked. I am Luna, and today I am here with Luca.
Hey everyone, good to be back.
So, Luca, I have a question for you. Have you ever been in a conversation in English and suddenly you did not know what to say next?
Oh yes, many times. That moment when the other person finishes talking and you just look at them.
Exactly. And then there is this silence, and it starts to feel very uncomfortable.
And the more you feel uncomfortable, the harder it becomes to say anything at all.
Right. So you either change the subject completely or you just say something like, yeah, that sounds good. And then the conversation kind of dies.
I have definitely said, "That sounds good," when I had no idea what was actually good about it.
So today we want to talk about something that can really help with this feeling. We are talking about follow-up questions.
And not difficult questions. We mean simple, short questions that keep a conversation alive.
The kind of questions that show the other person you are listening and that you want to know more.
Because honestly, when someone asks you a good follow-up question, it feels wonderful. You feel heard.
You do, and for English learners especially, this is such a useful skill because you do not need perfect grammar. You just need the right question at the right moment.
So today we are going to look at why these questions matter, what they sound like, and how to start using them naturally.
So let us start with that uncomfortable silence, because I think the problem often begins before the question. It begins with how we are listening.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when I am nervous in English, I am not really listening to the other person. I am preparing my next sentence.
Oh, I know that feeling. You are thinking, what will I say next? And then you miss half of what they said.
Exactly. So when they finish talking, you have nothing to react to because you were not really there.
That is a little painful to hear, but also very true.
And then the silence feels much longer than it really is. You panic a little, and then nothing good comes out.
The panic is the worst part, because when you panic, even words you know will suddenly disappear.
Right, so the silence is not really the problem. The real problem is where your attention was.
So if we move attention back to the other person, back to what they are actually saying, the follow-up question becomes much more natural.
Yes, because the question is already inside what they just told you.
Oh, I like that. The question is already there. You just have to hear it.
I remember one conversation I had at work. Someone told me about their weekend trip, and I was so focused on my grammar that I just nodded and said, "Oh, nice trip."
And what happened after that?
The conversation stopped. She looked at me like, "Is that all?" And I felt terrible because I actually wanted to know more.
So the words were inside you, but the listening was not there.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, after I stopped worrying about grammar, the questions started coming naturally.
So let us talk about what a follow-up question really does, because I think some learners see it only as a way to fill silence.
But it is more than that, right?
Much more. When you ask a follow-up question, you are telling the other person, "I was listening. What you said matters to me."
That is such a simple but important point. You are not just keeping the conversation alive, you are building a connection.
Right. And that connection is actually what makes speaking in English feel easier.
Because when the other person feels heard, they become more relaxed. And when they are more relaxed, the conversation slows down. And when it slows down, it is easier to understand.
So follow-up questions help the listener too, not only the speaker.
Exactly. And here is another thing. When you ask a follow-up question, you are also giving yourself more time.
More time to think?
Yes. While they are answering, you can breathe, listen again, and decide what to say next.
So it is a helpful trick too. Ask a question, buy yourself some time.
Well, yes, but only if you actually listen to the answer.
Fair point.
And the beautiful thing is that you do not need a long or clever question. something very short works perfectly well?
Like what? Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine someone says, I had a really difficult week at work. A follow-up question could simply be, oh, what happened?
Just what happened, that is it.
That is it. 3 words. And the other person will probably talk for the next 2 minutes.
Because it is an open question, it invites them to say more.
And you showed that you were listening. Those 2 things together are very powerful.
So what are some of the most useful follow-up questions for everyday conversations?
Let us think about this together. I think there are a few that work in almost any situation.
Okay, tell me one.
How did that go? This is great after someone tells you about something they did, like a job interview or a first day at a new place.
Oh yes, because you are not asking for details, you are just asking for the feeling of it. How did it go?
Exactly, and people love to talk about how things went. It is personal and easy to answer.
Another one I like is, how did you feel about that? It is similar, but it goes a little deeper into the emotion.
Right. And at B1 level, these questions are not too difficult to understand or to say. They feel natural.
What about when you want to understand something better, not just the feeling, but the details?
Then you can try, can you tell me more about that? Or even just, what do you mean when something is not clear?
What do you mean? Is interesting because some learners feel scared to ask that. They think it sounds rude.
Oh, that is a really common worry. But actually, it sounds curious. It sounds like you are interested.
So saying, what do you mean, is not rude. It is engaged.
Exactly. It means you are paying attention, and most people appreciate that.
Can I add one more that I find really useful?
Of course.
And then what happened? This one is great for stories. When someone is telling you something, this question pushes the story forward.
Oh, yes, it is almost like saying, please continue. I am enjoying this.
Right? And the person telling the story feels good because they know you want to hear more.
So we have, oh, what happened? How did that go? How did you feel about that? Can you tell me more? What do you mean? And then what happened?
6 simple questions that can carry a whole conversation.
And not one of them requires a perfect grammar structure. Okay, but here is something I want to be honest about. Sometimes I ask a follow-up question, they give me a long answer, and then I get lost.
Oh yes, you understood the question you asked, but not everything they said in the answer.
Exactly. And then I feel embarrassed to say I did not understand. So I just nod and say, oh yeah, that is interesting.
The famous, that is interesting, when you have no idea what was interesting about it.
Yes, we are back to that. It is a survival phrase, but it does not really move the conversation forward.
So what do you do instead?
I think being honest is actually the strongest choice. You can say, sorry, I did not catch that. Can you say it again?
And most people are very happy to repeat or explain. They do not judge you for asking.
Right. Or you can use a follow-up question to clarify without admitting you were completely lost. Something like, so you mean, huh? And then you try to guess the meaning.
Oh, so you mean... That is a great one, because even if you are wrong, the other person will correct you gently.
And then you understand, so either way, you win.
Either you guessed correctly, or they explained it more clearly. Both are good.
And here is one more thing. You do not have to understand every word to ask a good follow-up question.
Say more about that.
Well, if someone tells you a story and you understand the main idea, you can ask a question about that main idea. You do not need the details.
So, if they talk about a difficult situation, you heard difficult, and you can ask, how did you get through it?
Exactly. You followed the emotion, not every word.
That feels like an important shift in thinking. You do not need to understand everything. You just need to follow the feeling.
And when you do that, the conversation stays warm and connected, even when your English is not perfect.
I want to talk about something that I think stops a lot of learners: the fear of asking the wrong question.
What do you mean by the wrong question?
Like asking something too personal, or something that sounds strange, or a question that does not make sense.
Oh, I know that fear. You have a question in your mind and you think, is it okay to ask this? Will it sound strange?
And then you do not ask it, and the conversation gets quiet again.
So you lose the moment because of the doubt.
Exactly. And the truth is, most genuine questions are welcome in a normal conversation.
Because when the question is genuine, people feel it. They feel that you are really curious about them.
Right? Even if the grammar is not perfect, a real question always sounds better than silence.
I think about it this way. If someone asked me a question with imperfect grammar but clear curiosity, I would feel happy they asked.
Absolutely. And I think native speakers and fluent speakers are usually much less focused on your grammar than you think.
They are focused on whether you are present, whether you are with them in the conversation.
And a follow-up question proves you are present.
But what about questions that feel too personal? That is a real worry, too.
That is fair. I think the answer is to start with safe, open questions like the ones we talked about.
How did that go? Is never too personal. And then what happened is never too personal.
Right. These questions invite the other person to share as much or as little as they want.
And if they want to keep something private, they will. You can trust the other person to manage that.
So your job is just to ask with genuine interest. Their job is to decide how much to share.
That is a nice way to think about it. It takes the pressure away from you.
Yeah, you are not responsible for their comfort. You are only responsible for your own honesty and curiosity. So how does a learner actually start using these questions, like in a real situation?
I think the first step is just to notice. Before you try anything new, just notice. Notice what happens in your next English conversation when there is a silence.
Notice what you usually do in that silence.
Yes, do you change the subject? Do you go quiet? Do you say, that is interesting?
Just observe first.
Right, because once you see your own pattern, it is easier to change it.
And then the second step?
Pick one question, just one. Oh, what happened? Or how did that go? Practice it until it feels automatic.
One question, not six.
Not 6-1, and use it every time you see the moment.
And the moment is usually right after the other person finishes telling you something.
Exactly. They finish, there is a small pause, and instead of filling it with, yeah, interesting, you ask, oh, what happened?
It sounds so simple, but I remember when I was learning, these small things felt huge.
They do feel huge, because language is emotional. Every conversation has a little bit of risk in it.
And that is okay. The risk is part of learning.
The risk is part of connecting with people in any language.
I want to share something. When I was in my first English-speaking job, I was terrified of team meetings.
What made you most nervous?
The small talk before the meeting when people were just chatting and I had to join in without preparing anything.
That kind of spontaneous English is really hard.
Really hard. And I remember one morning someone said, I had a crazy weekend. And normally I would just smile and say, oh, good.
But this time was different?
This time I asked, oh, what happened? And they talked for 4 minutes. And I just listened and asked one more question at the end.
And?
And at the end they said, I love talking to you. You are such a good listener.
Oh, that is wonderful, Luca.
And I thought, I barely said anything, but because I asked that one question, the whole feeling changed.
That is the thing. Sometimes the best conversationalists are the ones who ask the most questions, not the ones who say the most.
One question, 4 minutes of connection.
And this is why follow-up questions are so powerful for English learners specifically. You do not need to produce a lot of language.
You need to respond to the other person's language.
Right. And responding is actually easier than producing. You have something to work with.
Instead of building from nothing,
Exactly. The other person gives you the material. You just need to open a door. Okay, so before we finish, let us bring some of this together, because I want learners to leave today with something they can actually use.
yes, so the main idea is this. A follow-up question shows you are listening, and it keeps the conversation alive.
And the questions do not need to be long or clever. Short, genuine questions work better than impressive ones.
Some of the most useful ones are, oh, what happened? How did that go? How did you feel about that? What do you mean? Can you tell me more? And then what happened?
And when you get lost, remember that, sorry, I did not catch that. Can you say it again? Is honest and completely natural.
The fear of asking the wrong question is usually bigger than the actual problem.
A real question with imperfect grammar is better than comfortable silence.
And you do not need to understand every word. You can follow the feeling and ask a question about that.
I also want to say one more thing. Using follow-up questions is not just a language skill, it is a human skill.
That is true. Even in their first language, some people find it difficult to stay present and ask questions.
So if you are working on this in English, you are doing something that many people struggle with in any language.
That is actually a good point. Do not be too hard on yourself.
And every time you ask one real question, you are practicing something that will grow.
So tell us what happens for you when someone asks a good follow-up question in a conversation. Does it change how you feel?
We would love to hear from you in the comments, and if today was helpful, please share it with someone who is also working on their English.
We appreciate every comment and every share. It means a lot to us.
Thank you so much for listening to English Unlocked today.
We hope you leave this episode feeling a little more ready for your next English conversation.
Remember, you do not need perfect grammar. You just need one good question.
And the best question is always the one that comes from real curiosity.
So stay curious, keep listening, and keep speaking.
Take care. Bye.